You already know what it feels like. You walk into a room and nobody notices you. Conversations keep going, eyes stay forward, and you leave feeling invisible, like your presence meant nothing. Or maybe you've been the opposite. You've been too loud, too eager, too available. And the more you gave, the less people respected you. The harder you tried to be liked, the more they took you for granted. Most people live their entire lives never understanding why some people command rooms without speaking, why some people get obeyed without demanding, and why certain individuals carry a weight around them that makes others instinctively fall back. You weren't taught this in school. Your parents probably didn't know it either. What I'm about to share with you is not popular wisdom. It is the kind of knowledge that powerful men whispered in private, wrote in coded manuscripts, and passed down only to those deemed worthy. Tonight, we open those doors. Welcome. Stay until the end, because what I'm about to tell you will permanently change how you see yourself and how others see you. Chapter 1. The Principle of Silence. Niccolò Machiavelli, the Italian statesman who wrote the most feared political manual in human history, once said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Most people read that and think it's about being cruel. They are wrong. Machiavelli wasn't talking about cruelty, he was talking about weight. He was talking about the gravity of a man who has mastered himself so completely that others cannot predict him, cannot manipulate him, and cannot ignore him. The man who talks too much reveals everything. He tells you his fears, his desires, his weaknesses. He gives you the map to his destruction and calls it conversation. Every word he speaks is a brick he removes from his own fortress. But the man who speaks rarely, every word he does say carries the force of 10. People lean in, people wonder, people fill the silence with their own anxiety, and that anxiety becomes your power. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. Niccolò Machiavelli. Consider this. In feudal Japan, the most feared samurai commanders were not the ones who screamed orders on the battlefield. They were the ones who stood completely still while the chaos erupted around them. Their generals would look back seeking direction, and a single slow nod would send 10,000 men forward. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power. It is restraint made visible. It is discipline that other people can feel radiating off of you like heat. Chapter 2. The Danger of Being Too Available. Here is a truth that will sting. The reason people do not respect you may have nothing to do with your intelligence, your talent, or your character. It may simply be because you are too easy to access. Think about water. You walk past a river every day and you barely notice it. But the moment that river dries up, entire civilizations collapse. The resource did not change in quality, only in scarcity. You have been giving yourself away like water in a flood, responding immediately, showing up every time you are called, making yourself infinitely available, and people have taken that flood and called it ordinary. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Niccolò Machiavelli. In the court of Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, visitors would wait for hours, sometimes days, for a single audience with the king. His chambers were designed with room after room, each guarded, each requiring permission to pass. By the time a nobleman reached Louis, he had been made to feel the weight of that privilege. Louis XIV never had to say, "I am important." The architecture of access did it for him. You must architect your own life the same way. Delay responses, decline invitations selectively. Let people come to you more than you go to them, not out of arrogance, but out of the understanding that scarcity creates value, and value creates respect. Chapter 3. Controlled Emotion. The Mask and the Fire. Here is where most people fail. They believe that power comes from suppressing all emotion, becoming cold, robotic, unreadable. They become stone walls, and stone walls do not inspire fear, they inspire nothing. True silent power is not the absence of emotion. It is the mastery of when, how, and whether to release it. The man who can feel a storm inside and choose to show only a calm sky, that man is terrifying, because no one knows what he is truly capable of. Of mankind, we may say in general they are fickle, hypocritical, and greedy of gain. Niccolo Machiavelli. Julius Caesar understood this completely. He was known for his humor, his warmth, his ability to make every soldier feel seen and valued. But when betrayal came, when his officers mutinied or his allies wavered, the temperature in the room would drop, not through screaming, not through punishment immediately, through the sudden total withdrawal of his warmth. Caesar's soldiers feared disappointing him more than they feared dying in battle. Because his approval was something they had tasted, and his coldness was a winter they never wanted to survive again, he weaponized warmth by making it conditional, not manipulatively, but strategically. Ask yourself honestly, do the people around you fear losing your presence? Or have you made yourself so constant, so forgiving, so endlessly warm, that losing you feels like losing background noise? You must become the kind of person whose absence is felt like a missing limb. And you do that not by being cruel, but by being fully present when you are present and completely absent when you are not. Chapter 4. The Power of Unpredictability. Robert Greene, drawing heavily from Machiavelli, wrote in the 48 Laws of Power, "Keep others in suspended terror. Cultivate an air of unpredictability. When you are predictable, you are manageable. And what can be managed can be dismissed." Genghis Khan built the largest contiguous empire in human history not simply through military force, but through psychological warfare rooted in unpredictability. His enemies never knew when he would attack, what direction he would come from, or whether he would offer mercy or destruction. That uncertainty paralyzed armies before a single arrow was fired. Your enemies, and yes, in this world everyone has them, do not fear what they understand. They fear what they cannot calculate. When you break your own patterns deliberately, when you occasionally say no where you always said yes, when you laugh where you usually stay serious, you become something no one can fully model in their mind. And what cannot be modeled cannot be controlled. Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. Niccolo Machiavelli. In the Cold War, the Soviet Union's greatest fear of the United States wasn't their nuclear arsenal, it was Nixon. Richard Nixon, for all his flaws, had cultivated what his national security advisor Henry Kissinger called the madman theory. They let it be known that Nixon was unpredictable enough to actually use nuclear weapons. That perceived irrationality gave the US negotiating leverage that rational actors could never achieve. You do not have to be irrational. You have to appear capable of it. You have to let people sense that there is a depth to you they have not yet seen, and perhaps pray they never do. Chapter 5. Speaking less, meaning more. Sun Tzu wrote, "The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting." And in the social battlefield of everyday life, the equivalent is this: to command without commanding, to be obeyed without demanding obedience. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, a man who commanded the most powerful military force on earth, kept a private journal that we now call the Meditations. In it he wrote not of conquest, but of self-mastery. He wrote about speaking only when silence was insufficient. He wrote about never wasting words on what actions could communicate. Marcus Aurelius never needed to announce that he was powerful. He was the most powerful man alive. What he worked on, daily, obsessively, was making sure his inner world matched the weight of that position, because he understood that the moment inner weakness leaks out through words, expressions, or reactions, the throne begins to crack. How many thrones in your own life are cracking right now because of how freely you speak? How much has your loose tongue cost you? In respect, in relationships, in opportunity. It is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. Niccolo Machiavelli, the man who says, "I don't need to prove myself," and then spends 20 minutes proving himself, has already lost. The man who says nothing, looks at you once, and turns back to what he was doing, has already won. Practice the discipline of the unfinished sentence. Let people fill in what you haven't said. Let the silence after your words hang in the air just a moment longer than comfortable. That discomfort is your power working. Chapter 6. The Architecture of Presence. There is a reason kings throughout history invested so heavily in ceremony, in architecture, in ritual. It was not vanity, it was environmental psychology applied centuries before the term existed. When Napoleon Bonaparte entered a room, everything about his physical preparation was intentional. His posture, his stillness, the direction of his gaze. He had studied the way great commanders carried themselves and built that architecture into his own body. He was 5'6" in an era of soldiers, and yet eyewitnesses consistently described him as commanding, even towering. His presence was manufactured through discipline, through the deliberate cultivation of stillness, of directional focus, of economy of movement. He never fidgeted, he never looked around nervously. He decided where to look, and he looked there, and everything in that line of sight felt chosen. Your body speaks before your mouth does. The way you enter a room, the pace at which you walk, whether your eyes scan anxiously or settle with intention. These signals are processed by every human nervous system in that space within milliseconds before a single conscious thought forms. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see and few can feel. Niccolo Machiavelli. Most people walk into rooms apologizing with their body, shoulders slightly forward, eyes slightly down, moving quickly to minimize the space they take up, as if their presence is an imposition. You were not made to apologize for taking up space. You were made to fill it. Walk as if the ground rises to meet your feet. Move as if your arrival was scheduled. Chapter 7. Mastering the Art of Strategic Withdrawal. Here is the forbidden truth that no one wants to say out loud. Sometimes the most powerful move available to you is to leave, to go quiet, to withdraw so completely that your absence reshapes the landscape. Hannibal Barca, the Carthaginian general who brought Rome to its knees, was a master of this principle on the battlefield. He would offer his center as bait, allowing Roman legions to push through, only to encircle them completely from the flanks. He withdrew in one direction to win in all directions. Entrepreneurs are simply those who understand that there is little difference between obstacle and opportunity and are able to turn both to their advantage. Niccolo Machiavelli, in Personal Power, strategic withdrawal looks like this. You stop pursuing, you stop convincing, you stop showing up where you are not valued. Not out of bitterness, out of the cold-blooded understanding that pursuit signals desperation, and desperation destroys respect. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison on Robben Island. The apartheid government thought isolation would break him. Instead, it forged him. When he finally walked free, he didn't rush. He walked slowly, deliberately, as if he had all the time in the world. And in that walk, the entire world saw a man who prison had not touched. That is what real power looks like. Not the man who reacts to every provocation, not the man who is always available for the next fight, but the man who has so completely secured his own center that nothing outside can shake it. Where in your life are you chasing when you should be withdrawing? Where are you pursuing approval that should be pursuing you? Chapter 8. The Fear That Comes from Depth. We have talked about silence, scarcity, presence, and withdrawal. But there is a deeper layer to this, one that separates those who perform power from those who actually possess it. True silent power radiates from depth, from the sense that behind this person's calm exterior lives a world of experience, knowledge, and capability that has never been fully revealed. It is the impression, accurate or not, that you are seeing only the surface of something vast. The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Niccolo Machiavelli. Read voraciously. Study history, psychology, philosophy, theology. Develop frameworks for understanding human behavior that most people have never encountered. When you speak, even briefly, let your words carry the weight of that study. Not by showing off, but by the natural precision and depth of what you say. Queen Elizabeth I of England, who ruled for 45 years in an era when women were considered unfit for power, built her fearsome reputation not on force, but on the widely circulated belief that she was the most educated, most strategically intelligent, most biblically literate ruler in Europe. Her enemies did not know where her knowledge ended, and that uncertainty was her shield. People fear what they cannot measure. When someone senses that your depths are unknown, that you have read things they haven't read, seen things they haven't seen, survived things they haven't survived, an instinctive respect rises in them that no amount of aggression could produce. This is why the men and women of true silent power rarely explain themselves. Explanation is measurement. They let you wonder. They let the mystery work. And the mystery always works harder than the explanation. Chapter 9, Respect versus Fear. The crucial line. Now I need to speak directly to your soul for a moment. Because everything I've shared tonight could be twisted into something dark if you are not grounded. Machiavelli himself drew a line that most people overlook. He said, "It is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong, and to make use of it or not according to necessity." The key phrase is according to necessity. Power used without wisdom is not power. It is destruction that eventually circles back to the one wielding it. The historical figures who fell the hardest, Stalin, Caligula, Idi Amin, were not brought down by external enemies. They were brought down by the internal collapse that comes from using fear without wisdom, without restraint, without genuine depth. They scared people, yes, but they inspired no one. And without inspiration, even the most feared ruler is building on sand. The silent power I am describing to you tonight is not the power of the tyrant. It is the power of the sage, the power of the man or woman who has so thoroughly conquered themselves, their ego, their need for validation, their reactive emotions, that they become a force of nature rather than a force of will. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. Niccolo Machiavelli. Build your inner circle with people who challenge you, people who are not afraid of you. Because if everyone around you is afraid to speak truth to you, you are not powerful, you are simply dangerous. And dangerous men always meet a dangerous end. Real power attracts. False power repels. You want people to come close to you out of genuine respect, genuine admiration, genuine desire to be in your orbit, and to maintain a healthy instinctive caution about ever crossing you. That balance, warmth and warning, is the signature of every truly great leader in history. Chapter 10. Becoming the version they fear to disappoint. I want to close this teaching with perhaps the most important concept of all. There is a version of you, forged through self-mastery, discipline, depth and wisdom, that the world has not yet seen. And that version is not someone to be feared like a predator. That version is someone to be feared like a standard. The greatest fear you can install in those around you is not the fear of your anger. It is the fear of failing your expectations, the fear of being someone who let you down. Think of the mentors, the parents, the leaders in your own life whose disappointment felt catastrophic, not because of what they would do to you, but because of who they were to you. Because they had built through consistent integrity and excellence a standard that you wanted to live up to. Their disappointment wasn't punishment. It was a mirror. That is the highest form of silent power. To become someone whose approval people work to deserve. To become someone whose standards lift everyone in your orbit simply by existing. Where the willingness is great, the difficulties cannot be great. Niccolo Machiavelli. This requires the hardest work of all. Not the performance of power, not the techniques and tactics, but the genuine, daily, painful work of becoming. Reading when you want to rest, staying silent when you want to react, withdrawing when every emotion says to pursue, choosing depth over distraction every single day. The world is full of people performing strength. It is almost empty of people who actually possess it. That emptiness is your opportunity. The silence that most people fill with noise is the same silence in which your power can grow, unannounced, undiluted, and unstoppable. Closing. You came here tonight, maybe feeling overlooked, maybe feeling like the world doesn't see what you're worth, maybe carrying the weight of 1,000 moments where you spoke and weren't heard, where you showed up and weren't valued, where you tried and weren't recognized. I want you to hear this clearly. The problem was never your worth. The problem was the gap between who you are on the inside and how that shows up on the outside. That gap is closable. That distance is walkable. Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Marcus Aurelius, Napoleon, Mandela, none of them were born into their power. They built it. They forged it in the fire of self-examination, in the silence of strategic patience, in the discipline of mastery. Every single one of them chose, at some defining moment, to stop being ordinary. That choice is in front of you right now. Not tomorrow, not after the next circumstance changes. Right now, in how you carry yourself home tonight. in whether you respond to that message immediately or let it wait, in whether you explain yourself in that argument or simply let your actions speak over time. The silent power is already in you. It always has been. You were just never told it was there, or how to use it. This has been knowledge that was kept from you. Consider it kept no longer. If this teaching reached something inside you, if it said something your soul already knew but never had words for, then like this video and subscribe for more teachings like this in the future. There is so much more where this came from. More history, more philosophy, more forbidden knowledge that was never meant for ordinary minds, but clearly you are not ordinary. I'll see you in the next one.